Welcome back to Everyday English Lounge.
Quick question before we begin. Are your shoulders trying to live next to your ears today?
If they are, gently invite them down. No judgment. They have had a busy week.
Mine tried that an hour ago, and my tea had to speak to them very firmly.
Your tea works hard on this show.
It is not legally a co-host, but it is emotionally involved.
If your mind feels noisy, if your chest feels tight, if your day already feels a little too full, stay here with us for a while.
You do not need to arrive calm. You can arrive exactly as you are, even if your brain has opened 12 dramatic tabs.
Today we are talking about how to stay positive and calm under pressure.
And we mean real pressure. Work pressure, family pressure, study pressure, money pressure. The kind that makes a tiny email feel like a movie trailer for disaster.
We also mean real calm, not perfect calm, not smiling to pain, not pretending everything is easy.
Yes. This is not just think happy thoughts and float above your problems. If that worked, I would already be levitating.
We want something more useful than that. We want a way to stay steady enough to think, speak, and choose your next step.
And as always, we will keep the English clear and natural so you can listen, learn, and breathe at the same time.
This episode is around B1 to B2 levels, so some parts may feel a little richer. But you do not need to catch every word.
Stay with the main idea, and if you want, come back later. You will catch more each time.
If this episode feels helpful, stay with us.
And if one person with a lot on their plate came to mind, you can send it to them later. All right, let us start with something simple. Pressure usually reaches the body before it reaches the best part of the mind.
Yes. Before we say anything wise, our body often says, "Hello, I am preparing for a small emergency."
Very rude of the body, honestly.
Very common, though. A few months ago, I had to lead an important workshop. It was one of those mornings where nothing was wrong in a dramatic way, but everything felt slightly sharp. My laptop needed an update. My slides suddenly looked worse than they had looked the night before. A message came in from a colleague saying, "Can we tighten the opening?" And even though that was a normal message, my brain translated it into, "You are about to fail in public."
That is such a familiar translation. Reality says one thing, and pressure hires a very dramatic narrator.
Exactly. And what I noticed first was not a thought. It was my jaw, then my breathing, then the strange way I was reading the same sentence again and again without understanding it.
That part is important. Under pressure, the mind can look busy without being useful. You are moving fast, but you are not really moving forward.
Yes, I was doing a lot of tiny urgent-looking things, but I was not actually helping myself. And I think many people call that being productive, when really it is being flooded.
Can I challenge one part of this?
Please do.
I used to think calm people were just born that way. I thought some people had a peaceful face and a peaceful nervous system, and the rest of us were simply out here sweating on public transport.
I understand that, but I do not think it is true. Some people may look calm, but very often what you are seeing is not a calm personality. It is a practice response. They notice pressure earlier. They interrupted earlier. That is very different from never feeling it.
So calm is not a personality type. It is a skill of catching the moment sooner.
Yes, that is such a good way to say it.
I find that hopeful because I cannot change my whole personality before lunch.
And you do not need to. In that workshop moment, I stopped trying to feel amazing. That was the first change. I did not tell myself, "You are confident, brilliant, unstoppable." My body would not believe that. Instead, I said, "You are under pressure." That is all. This is a hard moment, not a dangerous moment.
That is so much better than fake positivity.
It is gentler, and it is more believable. Positive thinking only helps if the mind can actually hold it. If the sentence is too shiny, the body rejects it.
That is a great line. If the sentence is too shiny, the body rejects it. Yes,
So maybe this is our first key idea today. Positivity under pressure does not mean forcing right feelings. It means choosing a thought that keeps the door open. Something like, "I can do this one part," or "I only need the next 5 minutes," or "I do not need to panic to take this seriously."
Let me repeat that last one because it is useful. You do not need to panic to take this seriously.
Yes, some of us learn that stress equals responsibility. We think if we stay tense enough, we are proving that we care.
And if we relax for 1 second, maybe the whole building collapses.
Right. But tension is not the same thing as care. Pressure can make you sincere, but it can also make you clumsy.
Listener, here is a question for you. When pressure enters the room, where do you feel it first? In your chest? Your stomach? Your jaw? Your thoughts? It helps to know your pattern.
Mine is definitely the jaw and the fast-scrolling brain.
Mine is speed. I start walking around like I am being chased by invisible paperwork.
That image is painfully accurate.
It is me and my tea against the paperwork. Again, the tea deserves partial hosting credit.
We may have to discuss that after the episode. Here is something else I learned from that workshop day. Once I named the pressure, I could finally do one useful thing. I closed the slide deck for 30 seconds. I put both feet on the floor. I took 3 slower breaths. Not magical breaths, just slower ones. Then I changed the opening line and stopped touching the rest.
That moment matters. You did not solve everything. You reduced the noise enough to choose.
Yes, and that is often what calm really is. Not a beautiful feeling, just enough space to make one clear decision.
I think people often misunderstand positivity here. They imagine a cheerful person saying, everything happens for a reason, while the printer breaks and the deadline gets closer.
I know. And under pressure, that kind of language can feel lonely. Because a part of you wants to say, no, actually, this is hard.
So let us say it clearly. If you are under pressure, you are allowed to admit that it is hard.
Yes, admitting difficulty is not negativity. Sometimes it is the beginning of steadiness.
That is such an important correction. We are not trying to become cheerful furniture. We are trying to become a little more grounded.
Exactly. Let me give another small daily example. Imagine you wake up, check your phone, and see 3 messages that all feel urgent. One is from work, one is from a family member, one is from a friend who says, "Can I call you?" Instantly, your body decides the whole day is a problem.
And now your toothbrush feels stressful.
Yes, suddenly even breakfast is having a crisis.
I have had deeply emotional toast.
In that kind of moment, many people jump straight into reaction. They answer fast, think fast, worry fast. But a calmer response might begin with one quiet sentence. 3 things want my attention. That does not mean 3 disasters are happening.
That sentence is wonderful. It separates demand from danger.
Exactly. Pressure likes to mix those together.
This is where I want to sharpen something. Sometimes people hear calm advice and think it means slow down so much that nothing gets done. But that is not what we are saying.
No, calm is not passive. Calm can move quickly. It just moves with less inner chaos.
Yes, a calm person can still answer the messages, take the call, fix the problem, and get to work. The difference is that they are not adding 5 imaginary disasters on top of the real ones.
That is well said. Pressure creates the first wave. Imagination often creates the second.
And the second wave is usually louder.
So if you want to stay positive and calm under pressure, the first practice is very simple. Notice what pressure feels like in you. Name the moment honestly. Then choose one action from that clearer place.
Notice, name, choose. That is neat. I can remember that.
Good. We will keep it.
And no, we are not putting it on a mug.
Not yet. The second part is what to do after you notice the pressure. Because awareness alone is helpful, but then you still have to live your day.
Unfortunately, yes, life continues. Emails remain extremely committed to arriving.
You had a good example of this a few weeks ago with the train.
Ah, yes. My public failure shared for educational purposes.
A generous service to the listeners.
So here's what happened. I was taking a train to visit my aunt. I had planned the trip carefully, which should have warned me. The bus to the station was late. My phone battery was down to 6%. I had not eaten enough. Then the station screen changed platforms twice. And suddenly there were people moving in every direction with great confidence, which is always upsetting when you have no confidence at all.
Stations are very good at producing emotional theater.
Truly. And in about 30 seconds, my mind created a complete story. I would miss the train. Then I would miss the family lunch. Then I would disappoint everyone. Then my aunt would quietly remove me from her will, which I do not think exists. But pressure is creative.
Pressure does love a full script.
Yes, and I could feel myself getting sharper inside, not wiser, sharper. Faster breathing, bad decisions, terrible internal commentary. Then I had a strange, helpful thought. I did not need to solve the whole afternoon. I needed the next useful thing.
That phrase is gold.
It helped immediately. The next useful thing was not to imagine family disappointment. It was to ask a station worker one clear question. After that, the next useful thing was to walk to the correct platform. After that, it was to find the right carriage. The situation was still stressful, but it stopped becoming a giant cloud over my entire life.
This is one of the best ways to stay calm under pressure. Shrink the time horizon. Pressure says, handle everything. Calm says, do the next useful thing.
Exactly. And I think positivity also changes here. A positive mindset in this moment is not "this trip is wonderful." It is, there is still a path through this.
Yes, not bright, just possible.
That is the kind of positivity I can trust.
Me too. Because when we are under pressure, we do not need a pretty sentence. We need a workable sentence.
Listener, maybe ask yourself this. When you feel pressure, do you start trying to solve the whole week in your head? Do you jump 10 steps ahead? Many of us do.
And that usually creates even more pressure, because the future becomes crowded all at once.
There is another scene where this matters a lot. Morning family chaos. I am not even a parent, but I have watched enough parents at 8 in the morning to know that society should offer the medals.
Very true.
Imagine this. One child cannot find a shoe. Someone has spilled milk. Your phone is ringing. You remember a form you forgot to sign, and you still have to leave in 7 minutes. If, in that moment, you tell yourself, I must stay perfectly calm and positive, you will probably feel worse.
Because now you are failing at two things, the hard morning and the impossible standard.
Exactly. But if you say, this is a pressured moment, one thing first, then your mind has somewhere to stand. Wipe the milk, find one shoe, breathe once, then the next thing.
I want to add something here. People sometimes hear one thing first and think it is too small. But small is exactly why it works. Pressure makes everything feel large and tangled. A small step breaks the spell.
Breaks the spell is a perfect phrase.
Thank you, and small actions are not childish. They are practical. Drink water, sit down, open the correct document, send the one honest message. Say, I need 10 more minutes. These are tiny doors out of panic.
Can I sharpen this again?
Please.
Sometimes the next useful thing is not action. Sometimes it is a sentence you do not say. Under pressure, I become very talented at making things worse out loud.
That is relatable.
For example, if I say, this always happens to me, or I am so bad at this, I have just added extra weight to a hard moment. So occasionally, the next useful thing is simply not to insult yourself.
Yes, that matters so much. The inner voice becomes very loud under pressure. And if that voice is cruel, calm becomes much harder.
I remember once I was late delivering a small project. Not a disaster, but not ideal. And instead of saying, you made a mistake, now fix it, I started telling myself that I was unreliable and difficult and basically a cautionary tale.
Which was not the truth.
Not even slightly. It was just pressure speaking in a dramatic accent.
There it is again. The dramatic narrator.
He should be fired.
Immediately. Let us connect this to English learning too, because many of our listeners know this kind of pressure very well. Imagine you are in a meeting or class. Someone asks you a question in English. You know more than you can say, but your mind goes blank for a second.
That second can feel like an hour.
Yes, and the pressure says, answer perfectly right now, or everyone will see that you are not good enough.
Which is a terrible instruction.
It is. A calmer response is much smaller. Start with one true sentence. Let me think for a moment, or my main point is. Or even, I agree, and I want to add one thing. That is enough to begin.
That is such a relief, actually. You do not need the perfect paragraph. You need an entry point.
Yes, Pressure loves perfection because perfection keeps you frozen. Calm prefers movement.
I want that on a t-shirt before I want the mug.
You're building a whole gift shop today.
The tea will manage it.
Of course. Here is another example, one that feels very ordinary and very real. A friend of mine had one of those workdays where every message began with "just checking in," which is often not a peaceful phrase. By 2 in the afternoon, she had 3 deadlines, a headache, and a growing fear that she was disappointing everyone.
Just checking in can carry remarkable emotional energy.
It really can. She said what changed the day was not some powerful speech. She opened a notebook and wrote 3 lines. What is urgent? What is important later? And what is not mine today? That was it.
That last line is excellent. What is not mine today?
Yes. Because pressure makes everything feel personally assigned to you. Calm asks, is that actually true?
That is another gentle challenge to pressure. Not every problem in your sight belongs in your hands.
Exactly. And there is positivity in that too. Not avoidance, just perspective.
Perspective is such a quiet word, but it does heavy lifting.
It does. And this is what I want the listener to hear. Staying positive and calm under pressure is less about creating a perfect mood and more about protecting a useful perspective.
That may be one of the central ideas of the whole episode.
I think so. Because once perspective returns, you can think again. You can speak more gently. You can stop turning one hard hour into a hard identity.
That line hits. One hard hour is not a hard identity.
No, it is not. The third part, then, is what happens after pressure has already affected you. Because sometimes we do get overwhelmed. Sometimes we do speak too sharply, go too fast, shut down, or make a mistake.
Yes, and then a second problem arrives. Shame.
Exactly, and shame is very bad at helping.
I had a moment like this with my sister last year. I was tired, behind on work, and already carrying too much in my head. She asked me a simple question about plans for the weekend, and I answered with that tight, impatient tone that says, I am not really upset with you, but unfortunately you are standing closest to my stress.
That is a painfully honest description.
I wish it were less accurate. And the moment I heard my own voice, I felt two things at once. First, guilt. Second, the urge to defend myself internally. The very noble thought of, well, I have had a hard day.
Which may be true, but it still does not repair the moment.
Right. A hard day explains some things. It does not excuse everything. So the useful move was not to pretend I was still calm. It was to repair quickly. I said, I am sorry. That tone was about my stress, not about you. Can you ask me again?
That is such a strong example. Calm is not never cracking. Calm is returning sooner.
I love that. Returning sooner.
Because people sometimes think, if I lost my calm, the day is ruined. But often the better question is, how quickly can I come back?
That makes calm feel much more human.
It is human. Very human. I had a similar moment in a work situation. I sent an email to several people and I forgot the attachment. A small thing, but it was attached to a bigger deadline. So the mistake felt larger than it was. For about 5 minutes, I had the classic pressure spiral. Now they think I am careless. Now I have created confusion. Now the whole project looks less professional.
The dramatic narrator got another job, I see.
He is annoyingly employable.
We really need HR involved.
Truly. But then I caught it. I sent a short correction. No apology speech, no emotional novel. Just the file and one calm sentence. And do you know what happened?
The world continued.
Exactly. The world continued.
That is a deeply useful reminder. Under pressure, we can treat small mistakes like permanent evidence against us.
Yes, and that is where positivity becomes very quiet and very mature. It sounds like I can recover from this. Not I never make mistakes. Not this is secretly wonderful. Just I can recover.
That kind of positivity has backbone.
I like that phrase. It does.
I think this matters especially for listeners who are trying to be strong for other people. Maybe you are working, studying, caring for family, and handling your own emotions at the same time. Pressure can make you feel that if you drop one ball, you have failed completely.
And that is such a painful lie.
Yes, because human beings are not machines. If you are carrying a lot, of course your system will react.
Which brings us back to the body again. Under pressure, the basics become more important, not less. Water matters, food matters, sleep matters, standing up and walking for 2 minutes matters. These things sound almost too ordinary, but ordinary support becomes powerful in a pressured state.
It is not glamorous advice, but it is real. No one likes hearing drink water as if it will solve life. But sometimes the brain you are using to judge your future is also simply thirsty,
Yes, and then everything feels more dramatic.
including toast, as we established.
Your emotional breakfast has become a theme.
I stand by it.
There is another layer here that I do not want to miss. Sometimes pressure does not make people fast, sometimes it makes them quiet. They go blank, numb, or disconnected.
I am glad you said that. We often talk about stress as speed, but for some people, it is fog.
Exactly. So if your response under pressure is not panic but emptiness, you're not doing it wrong. That may simply be your nervous system trying to protect you.
And the next useful thing for that person may be different. Not push harder, but reconnect gently.
Yes, maybe that means naming 5 things you can see. Maybe it means washing your face. Maybe it means saying to someone, I need a minute to think. Calm is not one style. It is a return to enough steadiness to function.
That distinction matters. We are not trying to look calm. We are trying to become reachable again, even to ourselves.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. The tea helped.
Of course it did. Let us make this practical for the listener. The next time pressure rises, see if you can ask 3 questions. First, what is happening in my body right now? Second, what story is pressure trying to sell me? Third, what is the next useful thing?
That is simple enough to remember, even in a hard moment.
That is the goal. Good support has to survive real life.
And maybe add one more quiet question. What would a kinder voice say right now?
Yes, because the tone inside your head matters. A harsh voice may sound efficient, but it often creates more fear, and fear makes clear thinking harder.
A kinder voice is not a lazy voice. It can still be honest. It can say, you are behind. Let us begin. It can say, you handled that badly. Now repair it. It can say, this is hard, but you are still here.
That is exactly it. Kind and clear can live together.
Listener, maybe notice which side you lean toward. Are you so gentle with yourself that you avoid action? Or so harsh with yourself that action becomes painful? Calm usually lives somewhere between those extremes.
Yes, calm is not collapse, and it is not attack. It is steadiness.
There is our word.
There it is. Before we move into the learning block, I want to leave you with one small imagined scene. Picture yourself at the end of a difficult day. The kitchen is messy. Your phone has one message you do not want to answer. You made one mistake earlier and it keeps replaying in your mind. In that moment, pressure will invite you to review your whole life like a judge.
It loves a final speech.
It does. But you do not have to accept the invitation. You can say, today was heavy. I do not need to make it mean more than it means. Then you wash one cup, answer one message, or simply sit down and breathe for a minute.
That is one of the kindest forms of positivity, actually, refusing to turn a hard day into a hopeless story.
Yes, quiet hope, not loud denial.
And maybe that is the heart of the episode. Staying positive and calm under pressure is not about becoming a different person. It is about returning to yourself sooner, with a clearer voice and a smaller next step.
Beautiful. Let us slow down now and do our word tour.
10 useful phrases from today, and yes, my tea has formally requested mention in the credits.
Number 1 is under pressure. This means in a stressful situation where demands feel heavy or urgent, you might say, I can still speak clearly when I am under pressure. Notice that it does not mean disaster. It simply means the situation is asking a lot from you. Repeat under pressure.
Number 2 is overwhelmed. This means you feel there is too much to handle at one time. For example, I felt overwhelmed when 3 problems arrived at once. It often describes that flooded feeling when your mind cannot decide what to do first. If you know this word, You can describe your state more clearly and ask for help more calmly. Repeat, overwhelmed.
Number 3 is steady. Steady means calm, stable, and not jumping around emotionally or physically. You could say, her voice stayed steady during the meeting. This is a beautiful word because it does not mean perfect and it does not mean cold. It means strong in a quiet way. That is exactly the kind of calm we talked about today. Repeat, steady.
Number 4 is spiral. As a verb, to spiral means to quickly move into worse and worse thoughts or feelings. Example, after the small mistake, I started to spiral. This word is useful because many pressure moments are not only about the event, they are about the mental movement after the event. When you notice a spiral early, you can interrupt it sooner. Repeat, spiral.
Number 5 is grounded. Grounded means connected, stable, and present in your body or mind. You might say, a few slow breaths helped me feel grounded. In simple words, grounded is the opposite of scattered. It suggests that you are back in contact with the room, your body, and the real moment, instead of being carried away by fear or speed. Repeat, grounded.
Number 6 is the next useful thing. This is not a single dictionary word, but it is a very practical phrase. It means the next action that genuinely helps, even if it is small. For example, I stopped panicking and did the next useful thing. Maybe that thing is sending one message, drinking water, or asking one clear question. Small does not mean weak. Small can be very intelligent. Repeat the next useful thing.
Number 7 is perspective. Perspective means a balanced way of seeing a situation. It helps you judge size, importance, and truth more accurately. Example, I needed perspective before I reacted. Under pressure, perspective often disappears first. Everything feels huge. This word reminds us to step back and ask, what is actually happening? And what am I adding to it? Repeat, perspective.
Number 8 is snap at someone. This phrasal verb means to speak to someone in a sharp, impatient way, usually because you are stressed or upset. For example, I snapped at my sister and then apologized. It is a very natural everyday phrase. It does not describe deep cruelty. Usually it describes a tense moment when your stress leaks into your tone. Repeat, snap at someone.
Number 9 is recover. Recover means return to a better state after a difficulty, mistake, illness, or shock. You could say, we made a mistake, but we can recover. I love this word because it leaves room for hope without denying the problem. Recovery does not mean the hard thing never happened. It means the hard thing does not get the final word. Repeat, recover.
Number 10 is bounce back. This means to return with energy or stability after a difficult moment. Example, she felt embarrassed, but she bounced back quickly. It is similar to recover, but a little more lively and informal. If recover sounds calm and steady, bounce back sounds active and resilient. Both are useful, and both remind us that one hard moment does not have to define the whole day. Repeat, bounce back.
Before we go, take one slow breath with us.
You do not need to solve your whole life tonight.
Your tiny homework is simple. The next time pressure rises, name the moment and choose one next useful thing.
Even if that thing is lowering your shoulders and not letting them move in with your ears. Again.
In the comments, tell us one situation that puts you under pressure and one sentence you want to remember when that pressure comes.
And tell us which word or phrase you want to practice this week. I am quietly voting for steady.
If this episode helped you, you can subscribe and come back to Everyday English Lounge next time.
And if one person needs a calmer voice today, you can share this with them too.
Thank you for spending this time with us.
We are Mia and Leo.
This is Everyday English Lounge.
See you next time.